So let's talk about The Surrendered Wife by Laura Doyle. Hello, beautiful people. My name is Athol. This is The Dateable Marriage, and let's just jump into it. So today I have a reader question. Hello, Athol. First of all, I'd like to thank you. Your book has helped me get my marriage back in order, and we're on upwards momentum now. My wife wanted to help further and stumbled upon this book from Laura Doyle. The Surrendered Wife, a practical guide to finding intimacy, passion, peace with your man. She brought it, started reading it, and so far opened her eyes a bit. While I kind of agree with the stuff in there, and it definitely helps me with my task of being the captain, I wondered how you think about this book. I was afraid that the main points of the book undercut the alpha part of your advice because the wife's surrendering. She doesn't do it because the man is the captain, but because she lets him be the captain. Or am I too negative and small-minded here? You are too negative and small-minded here. If it is working, it is working. It doesn't matter why it's working. If your relationship is better and the book helped, it is all good. Don't worry about it. If your wife is basically being pleasant and agreeable and you guys are getting on great, that is not what I call a problem. That's what I call the goal. Just enjoy it. Just talking about the book in a very sort of general sense, I actually thought this was one I had read many years ago, but having worked on this video, I'm not actually sure I have. I certainly know of it. I have heard it referenced probably hundreds of times, which is probably why I assumed I had read it, but maybe not. So as we go forward with this video, take everything I say with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I'm not actually sure if I've read it. So in a nutshell, what Laura Doyle is talking about is how to play that sort of first officer role, when I've talked about the captain and first officer stuff in the past. So in that case, it's a really nice sort of dovetailing of what I've written about with what she's written about. So there's probably very, very minimal conflict between the two, which is why it is working well, while I keep hearing people recommend it. So let's talk about why all this works in terms of the nice card, mean card metaphor. If he's basically pleasant and agreeable and nice, he plays a lot of nice cards, and the majority of the negativity in the relationship is coming from the wife. She's picking fights about nothing. She has some sort of crazy demands. There's a whole bunch of entitlements. She's just generally being somewhat unpleasant and tossing out a whole bunch of mean cards. To protect himself, the husband has to start playing some mean cards in response as well. Otherwise, she just stomps all over him. He loses his boundaries and his relationship gets worse. So if in that situation, the wife reads The Surrendered Wife, realizes a lot of that negativity is coming from her, and instead of playing a bunch of mean cards, she then decides to play a whole lot more nice cards. That means you're basically pleasant, agreeable, nice husband. Doesn't have to play a bunch of mean cards himself in defense, and he can go back to playing nice cards. So it ends up in a situation where everyone is a whole lot more pleasant. The relationship is smoother. Everyone gets along better. The trouble I see with this book, and I've seen it sort of misapplied and abused in a sense, is that if it assumes that the husband is pretty much a good guy. If it turns out he really is just a nasty, obnoxious jerk, if you are mindlessly following that sort of surrendered wife sort of protocol, and they're just doubling down on being pleasant, doubling down on being nice, and the hope that eventually he comes around, he's never going to come around. He is just going to eat it all up with a spoon because he gets to be mean. He gets to play the mean cards all he wants, and she's always going to play nice cards in response, which is why I have actually seen the Surrendered Wife book recommended dozens and dozens of times by sometimes guys I actually find a little bit worrying and questionable. Like, get your wife to read this. She's going to turn into this perfect angel, and then you're just getting, blowjobs and dinner and not lifting a finger for chores because she's just going to double down on being perfectly submissive and wonderful. So that book can actually be a little bit misapplied and abused in that way. Yeah, and I'm sure Laura Doyle had no intent that that would ever happen with your stuff. Um, but in general, I completely agree with the thought of if you're just injecting negativity into your relationship for no reason, stopping it is a really, really good idea. It's just, nice cards work if your partner is also nice. But if they're generally unpleasant, you may actually need to learn to push back on them a little bit to defend your own boundaries. Or put another way, if you have tried to be just wonderfully nice, wonderfully supportive, wonderfully submissive, endlessly endearing and long-suffering in your relationship, and you've not seen any progress as a result of that, what you may need to do is be a little bit more of a